This is a brief history of India, up until about the 5th century BC, when the Buddha lived and taught.
Hi, Mr. Kellan Howard.
Hi, Prasanna.
How are you?
I'm good.
We are talking after a very long time.
Yeah, we unfortunately missed last week due to I got called into work while I was sick with the flu, so that was tough.
Yeah.
However, we're now ready to do a new podcast, and I'm going to call this The Full Story of the Buddha.
Okay.
Because I told the story of the Buddha, but again, like everybody does, I cut it off at his enlightenment. Like that's the end of the story, when that's really the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to go 45 years further than that, to his death, and then even after his death. And I'm also going to go back to 5,000 years ago. I'm going to start the story way early in Indian history so we can get a sense of how this all came into being.
Yep.
Okay, so about 5,000 years ago, there was a great civilization called the Indus Valley or Harappan civilization. They were technologically advanced. They had citywide sanitation systems. Every house had a drain feeding into a vast network of sewers with a U-bend to prevent backflow of gases and odors. This is the P-trap that modern sinks have, right? You know how it's got that little loop that keeps water in it and prevents any gases from coming back into the room, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't reinvented. They didn't come back into use until the late 19th century. So some houses had up to 6 drains with 2 toilets, 2 baths, 1 in the kitchen and courtyard. So, this was a pretty sophisticated society with cities. They had like 5 to 7 major cities with millions of people. People stored water in terracotta pots drawn from private wells, which were either inside their homes or public wells, which were every 3 to 5 houses.
Yeah.
The 5 to 7 cities and more than 1,000 settlements covered an area of 1 to 1.5 million square kilometers and totaled around 5 million people at the civilization's peak. It lasted for 2,000 years. The mature period lasted for 700 years. Little is known about its culture because we can't decipher the script. We don't have enough of it. But we have a fair bit of their art. And this is where it gets really interesting because some of the images look like Hindu or Buddhist art. They depict people kneeling with joined palms, a gesture of reverence found in all cultures, and there are numerous examples of this gesture in Harappan art. But some seals show figures kneeling and paying reverence to a figure in a meditative pose, like a Buddha or a yogi. These images are around 4,500 years old. Buddhism and yoga as we know them are only about 2,500. The famous Pashupati seal seems to show a figure with 3 faces, like later depictions of Shiva. It's been called Proto-Shiva, and it's even named after Pashupati, a manifestation of Shiva.
Yeah.
These cities were extremely peaceful. There's no violence depicted in their art, no archaeological evidence of warfare or standing armies, and interpersonal violence appears to have been extremely rare. It was the most peaceful urban civilization in history. No weapons, no fortifications, no mass graves, no animal sacrifice, only copper knives for craft, and the few arrowheads found were small and clearly for hunting. They were egalitarian compared to contemporary civilizations, and there's no evidence of institutionalized slavery, which was common in the time. They traded with Mesopotamia and other regions across Eurasia. Their cities functioned as vibrant hubs of craft and commerce amid a largely agricultural world. It collapsed due to climate changes, droughts, drying rivers, and aridification. People returned to smaller agricultural settlements resembling pre-urban ways of life. Then the Aryans came. They migrated from the Eurasian steppe in waves and integrated with the local population. They brought horses and chariot technology. They coexisted with the late Harappans for 200 years and culturally dominated by 1300 BC. Aryans were lighter skinned and composed the higher castes, the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins, which are still the higher castes in India today, and still tend to have lighter skin and more steppe DNA, according to studies. The Kshatriya were the warrior noblemen, The Brahmins were the priestly caste, traditionally accorded the highest ritual status in society. Brahmins believed themselves to be a distinct race, an ethno-religion like Judaism, and to this day, Brahmin identity is hereditary. Aryans brought the Vedic religion into India. It shares roots with Zoroastrianism. The Persian Empire was founded by Aryans, and even the word Iran means land of the Aryans. The closest living genetic relatives to the Indo-Aryans are groups like the Pashtun, Pamiri, and Kalash peoples of Afghanistan and northern Pakistan, who have up to 50% Aryan ancestry, from which they derive striking features like light skin, hair, and eyes. The Aryans also brought the language that developed into Sanskrit. It's an Indo-European language, related to most European languages, including English. The words diva, deity, divinity, divine, and the Latin deus all share a root with the Sanskrit word deva, which means God.
Yeah.
There's also controversial evidence of a much older, possibly 9,500-year-old city submerged off the coast of the Harappan region in the Gulf of Kambat. The Gulf is fed by 4 rivers whose currents churn up silt, making diving impossible, but sonar images reveal what might be enormous man-made structures, and many artifacts have been found by dredging the ocean floor. It's highly likely that many civilizations once existed in India that we may never find, hidden under 20 meters of silt or below the water table where excavation is impossible. The truth is we have no idea how far back civilization goes in India.
Yeah.
The Kshatriyas, Brahmins, and the wealthy Vaishya caste, artisans, merchants, and landowners, were all called Arya, which meant noble or highborn. By the 5th century BC, 1400 years after the decline of the Harappans, India had re-urbanized, and it's into this newly re-urbanized world that Siddhartha Gotama was born.
Yeah.
He's born into the warrior caste. His father is the ruler of the Sakya clan. His mother dies 7 days after he's born, and he's raised by his maternal aunt. He's educated in martial arts, literacy, and governance. He later gets married and has a son. Then, at age 29, he leaves home seeking a solution to the problem of suffering. At the time, there was a reactionary movement against the excesses of the Brahmins, where people enjoying the new agricultural surplus would leave home in search of moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, and people would feed them because they believed in the value of their spiritual quest. To this day, offering food is a widespread cultural practice in India, which goes back to this time. These renunciants are called samanas, which means recluses or ascetics. An ascetic is someone who practices severe discipline and abstains from all forms of indulgence. Siddhartha joins the samanas. He studies meditation under a couple of teachers, quickly masters their techniques, and concludes they aren't the answer he's seeking. So for 6 years, he practices extreme austerities with a group of 5 ascetics. He reduces his diet until he's eating almost nothing. He becomes so emaciated that you can see his spine through his belly. His eyes sink deep into his skull. His head looks like a shriveled gourd. He induces extremes of pain in the belief that conquering the body will free the soul. Starting to realize the middle way, he takes solid food again, regains some strength, and proceeds to meditate. Then, at age 35, seated beneath the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, he attains perfect awakening and realizes the end of suffering. In his first sermon, he explains what that awakening was. He finds the group of 5 ascetics in the deer park in Varanasi and says, "Monks, these 2 extremes should be avoided. The pursuit of happiness and sensual pleasures, which is vulgar, ignoble, and unbeneficial, and the pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful and unbeneficial. Avoiding these extremes, I've awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to knowledge and vision, to peace and nirvana. The middle way is the Noble Eightfold Path. That is, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The noble truth of suffering is that birth, old age, sickness, and death are suffering. Union with the displeasing is suffering, and separation from the pleasing is suffering. The noble truth of the cause of suffering is craving for sensual pleasure, craving for becoming, and craving for non-existence. The truth of the cessation of suffering is the cessation of craving, renouncing it, relinquishing it, and being freed from it. The truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path itself. Suffering is to be understood, its cause is to be abandoned, its cessation is to be realized, and the way is to be cultivated. Only when my knowledge was purified did I claim to be awakened, when I knew and saw that my liberation was unshakable. The word he's using for noble is Arya. He takes it from its class context and makes it mean spiritually noble, awakened. He does the same thing with the word Brahman and redefines more than a dozen other words, including karma and dharma. When he finishes, the 5 ascetics become the first 5 monks in his order. That same day, the son of a wealthy guild leader in Varanasi, who lives surrounded by female musicians in luxury, sees his female attendants asleep, drooling and snoring, their beauty vanished. Repulsed, he leaves home and wanders to the deer park. Gotama welcomes him. "Come, Yasa, there's no distress here, no danger." Yasa takes off his golden sandals and listens to a graduated discourse on generosity, ethics, heaven, the dangers of sensuality, renunciation, and the Four Noble Truths. Later, when Yasa's father comes looking for him, he becomes the first lay disciple to take the 3 refuges: refuge in the Buddha, the awakened one, the Dharma, the teaching, and the Sangha, the order of monks. Gotama ordains him using the formula "Come, Bhikkhu," which is the first case of the Buddha using the formula "Come, Bhikkhu" to ordain someone. The Dharma is well expounded. Live the holy life for the complete subsiding of suffering. The next day, Yasa's mother and former wife become the first female lay disciples, and a large group of Yasa's friends join the order as monks. Gotama delivers his second sermon, the Sermon on Not Self, to the newly ordained monks. He says, "Monks, form is not self, neither are feelings, perceptions, choices, or consciousness. If they were, they'd be under our control and wouldn't lead to affliction. What do you think? Are they permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, sir." "And is what is impermanent satisfactory or unsatisfactory?" "Unsatisfactory, sir." "So is what is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and subject to change fit to be regarded as mine, as what I am, as myself?" "No, sir." "Therefore, the 5 aggregates should be seen clearly as they are. Not mine, not what I am, not myself." Seeing this, a noble disciple becomes disenchanted. Disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is released from the asavas. That's a difficult word to translate. I translated it as corrupting influences. That just inflows is kind of the thing, right? The mind can't be corrupted. Let's just say that. Then he tells the monks to wander forth for the good of the many out of compassion for the world. He says, "Let no 2 go by the same road," marking the first missionary dispatch of the Sangha. The third sermon Gotama delivers is the fire sermon. Addressing the group of fire-worshipping ascetics led by the Kassapa brothers, he says, "Monks, all is burning. What's burning? The eye is burning. Sights are burning. The ear is burning. Sounds are burning. The nose is burning. Smells are burning. The tongue is burning. Tastes are burning. The body is burning. Touches are burning. The mind is burning. Thoughts are burning." Burning with what? Burning with greed, hatred, and delusion. Burning with old age, sickness, and death. Burning with sorrow, anguish, and despair. Seeing this, a noble disciple becomes disenchanted with the senses and their objects. Disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is released. The whole group of fire worshippers receive ordination, and together with Gotama, they travel to Rajagaha. The Magadhan king, Bimbisara, a powerful king who founded a dynasty, heard that the Samana Gotama had arrived in the capital. The king Bimbisara went to see him, and after hearing the Dharma, he attained the first stage of enlightenment, stream entry. He invited the monks to the next day's meal and offered the bamboo grove as the first permanent dwelling for the Sangha. The Samana Sanjaya was living at Rajagaha with a large group of followers. Among them were two brilliant young Brahmins, Sariputta and Moggallana. They had an agreement. Whoever found the deathless first would tell the other. Sariputta encounters one of Gotama's disciples and asks him what doctrine his teacher holds. The monk summarizes it. Of things with a cause, the Tathagata has explained the cause, and also their cessation. Tathagata is another one of these difficult to translate words. It means one thus come, but also thus gone. It's a play on words, and it's an epithet of the Buddha. Upon hearing this, Sariputta instantly sees the truth, realizing that whatever begins also ends. Moggallana notices the change in him. They go to the Buddha and become his disciples, taking many of Sanjaya's followers with them. Moggallana and Sariputta quickly attain enlightenment and are appointed the Buddha's chief disciples, with Moggallana renowned for his psychic powers and Sariputta very near to Gotama's equal in teaching the Dharma. Anathapindika, likely the richest man in the Gangetic plain in the 5th century BC, uses his fortune to become the community's largest private patron. After hearing the Buddha in Rajagaha, he returns to Savatthi and purchases the Jeta's grove by literally covering the ground with gold. He laid out gold coins over the entire Jeta's grove in order to buy it. Gotama spends more than half his rains retreats there during his 45-year ministry. Gotama has a variety of teachings for the lay community, which include respect for parents, maintaining harmonious marriages, making a living virtuously, using wealth wisely, resolving disputes, and fostering social harmony. He gives them 5 precepts to live by: not killing or harming living beings, not stealing, not committing sexual misconduct, not speaking falsely or harmfully, and not taking intoxicants that cause heedlessness. He teaches the law of karma, that good actions have good results and evil actions have bad results, just as plants bear fruit according to their seed, and all beings are reborn according to the moral quality of their actions. Good actions lead to happy destinations. Evil actions lead to unhappy destinations. He teaches mindfulness of breathing, awareness of the breath, stilling and freeing the mind, meditative absorption, states of seclusion, rapture, pleasure, concentration, equanimity, and clear comprehension. Breath meditation was the technique that brought the Buddha to enlightenment. Enlightenment is full insight, leading to complete destruction of suffering, cutting it off at the root like a tree stump, never to grow again. He debates rival teachers with unmatched clarity. He teaches that all 4 castes are equally capable of purification. Caste distinction dissolves in the Sangha, and rank is based on seniority. He founds an order of nuns, which is extremely radical for the time. He tells the skeptical Kalamas not to believe anything on authority alone, but to trust their experience and discernment, and in a Socratic way, leads them to the understanding that they already know the difference between wholesome and unwholesome actions. He uses similes to illustrate his teachings, like the simile of the arrow, the raft, the snake, the saw, and the cloth. He's an unsurpassed teacher. He says, by oneself is one defiled, by oneself is one purified. Purity and impurity are personal. No one can purify another. He says, you yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. The king of Kosala, King Pasenadi, becomes an avid follower. Gotama tells him to imagine mountains closing in from all sides, crushing everything in their path. Knowing death approaches, what should you do? Pasenadi replies, what else can I do but practice morality and do good actions? Gotama returns to his home of Kapilavatthu. He ordains his half-brother Nanda, 5 of his cousins, including Ananda, and Devadatta, his 7-year-old son, Rahula, and the son of one of his father's chief ministers, and a barber named Upali, who becomes the master of the monk's code of discipline. Gotama's maternal aunt, Mahapajapati, asks him to allow for the ordination of women, which he initially refuses. Mahapajapati later walks to Vaisali with a large group of Sakyan women and asks again. Gotama refuses for a second time. As she weeps, Ananda advocates for her, asking whether women can attain enlightenment. Gotama says they can. Ananda reminds him that she nursed him as an infant. Gotama relents and establishes the nuns' order. An ascetic named Upatissa Kassapa is out walking one day when he sees the Buddha in the road and instantly recognizes him as his teacher. He becomes Maha Kassapa, Great Kassapa, regarded as Gotama's equal in ascetic practices and training new monks. Gosita, a wealthy banker in Kosambi, donates a quiet park to the order. The monks there quarrel over a minor rule. Gotama teaches them 6 principles of social harmony, but still they quarrel. He leaves and spends the rains retreat alone. When the lay community discover why he left, they stop giving food to the monks, forcing them to reconcile. The most prominent female lay supporter, Visakha, who was converted at 7 when she heard Gotama preach in the 2nd year after his enlightenment, donates another park in Savatthi. Gotama names his cousin Ananda his personal attendant because of his extraordinary memory. After Gotama passes away, Ananda recites all of his teachings at the first council, preserving the canon. Gotama converts the murderous ascetic Angulimala, finger necklace, who wore the fingers of his victims around his neck. King Pasenadi arrives with an army to arrest him, shocked to find him sitting peacefully among monks. Gotama assures him that people have nothing to fear from Angulimala now. Angulimala attains enlightenment, but villagers still throw stones at him. He comes back with his robes bloodied, and Gotama tells him to bear the pain, explaining that he's experiencing the ripening of karma that would have brought him a much worse fate in hell. Gotama's young cousin Devadatta is at first a serious monk, and he develops psychic power, which he shows off to King Bimbisara's son, Prince Ajatasattu. Ajatasattu starts waiting on him with fine food every day, and Devadatta begins to think that he should lead the Sangha rather than Gotama. He persuades Ajatasattu to kill his father and ascend the throne. Ajatasattu tries, but the palace guards seize him and reveal his knife. When the king asks why, Ajatasattu says that he wanted a kingdom. Bimbisara abdicates the throne and hands it to him, but Ajatasattu still imprisons him in a dungeon and starves him to death. Devadatta attempts to kill Gotama, but fails. He claims that Gotama is indulgent, and he goes to Gotama with 5 demands. When Gotama refuses, he splits the Sangha, taking many monks with him. Gotama sends Sariputta and Moggallana to retrieve them. Devadatta dies shortly after. The texts say that the earth swallows him, and he's reborn in Avicii, the great hell. Interesting stories about when Devadatta tries to kill him. He actually has Ajatasattu release a mad elephant, and the elephant charges the Buddha because he's the closest person to him, and this elephant kills everything in his path. But the Buddha just stands there, making the fearless gesture with his hand, and the elephant comes to a screeching stop on his knees and bows his head, and the Buddha puts his hand on his head because he's full of loving kindness, and that is a protection against animals and people with ill will towards you. Yeah. Ajatasattu later becomes Gotama's disciple and repents, but he's unable to see the Dharma. The moral weight of parricide blocks realization and destines him for hell. King Pasenadi is overthrown by his son and flees to Rajagaha to seek Ajatasattu's aid, but the gates are closed when he arrives. Exhausted and grieving, he dies before dawn. Sariputta and Moggallana pass away. The Buddha comments that the assembly seems empty without them, but he reminds the monks how we must be parted from everything that's dear to us. When the Buddha was staying at Vulture's Peak near Rajagaha, Ajatasattu's chief Brahmin announces the king's plan to invade the Vajjayans. Gotama explains that they can't be defeated because they follow the 7 principles of non-decline. The Sangha travels to the mango grove in Nalanda. Ambapali, the famed courtesan, invites him for the next day's meal and donates her grove. During the rains retreat, he becomes gravely ill, but suppresses it so he can properly take leave of the Sangha. When he regains some strength, he tells the monks, "When I'm gone, be islands unto yourselves." At Pava, Chanda the smith offers the meal. Gotama instructs him to serve a particular dish only to him, bury the rest, and serve other food to the other monks. After eating, Gotama becomes fatally ill. He tells Ananda that Chanda shouldn't feel bad. Offering a Buddha his last meal is of great merit. They travel to the Sala Grove, accompanied by the Mala princes and Kusinara nobles. Gotama asks Ananda to prepare a bed between 2 sala trees, with his head facing north. Lying in the lion's pose, he gives his final instruction. The way to honor me is to practice. The Dharma and discipline will be your teacher now. Be lamps unto yourselves. Work out your liberation with diligence. He enters meditative absorption, emerges from it, and becomes totally unbound. After the Buddha is gone, Mahakassapa becomes the de facto leader of the Sangha. He organizes the first council and codifies the teachings. The Buddha's relics are divided into 8 parts and distributed, and memorials are built over them. Memorials are also built over the urn used to collect the relics and the embers of the funeral pyre, bringing the total to 10 original reliquaries. Later, the Emperor Ashoka, who conquered the whole of India, collected most of the relics from all but one of the original reliquaries and distributed them to a vast number of stupas across his kingdom. Today, authentic relics are housed in temples and museums worldwide, including 2 famous tooth relics in Sri Lanka and China. That is my story. That's my story. The Emperor Ashoka converted to Buddhism, and he helped to spread it by sending Buddhist monk missionaries throughout the known world. It's on a stone edict that he sent them to Egypt, to
Yeah.
Ptolemy's Egypt, hundreds of years before Jesus lived in Egypt. So who knows, right? It's not recorded in the history books that Buddhism reached there, but he sent missionaries anyway, and Buddhism spread throughout the Eastern world. It just never took hold in the West.
Yeah.
They had some very different ideas, I think.
Mm.
Maybe. There's a lot of similarities, though, because, and that's one of the things that I want to get into, is I want to talk about how, like monotheism, that was starting to increase in the Buddha's time, right? It was they had a one God at the top of it all, a creator,
Mm.
right? And he was called Brahma, right?
Yeah.
And now there's like, I think Brahman is like another concept.
Universe.
Yeah, the universe, yeah. And Brahma was like the overlord and the creator and all this other stuff, right? So they had that. I mean, Judaism had that. They said one God. Everybody else's God's wrong. We got one God, and he's the creator,
Mm.
right? That was like their unique thing. But I think that in India they had the same idea. They were starting to have that same idea. They had a polytheism, and in the time of where Judaism, surrounding Judaism, were polytheists. Everyone was a polytheist, right? And they were like the one unique monotheism. But in India, they had polytheism, and then monotheism started to grow as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's all I have to say today.
I'm glad that you had such a deep research on things. And as far as I know, you have been researching on things, and you have been so interested in the history of Buddhism, and I
And of
know
India.
of India. Yeah. And you explained it so well. Like I'm sure a lot of Indians, as well as Western people as well, they would really like to hear this podcast, just to know that why this story, or where this story came from, or why this Buddhism was so different, and why it was so uniquely accepted by people. Because at the end of the day, it's mindfulness, right? And it's teaching people to be humble and accepting uh, that uh, suffering is a part of life. It's the way you can handle things. Uh, there is a unique way that people can completely uh, eliminate suffering from their lives.
Hmm. And it comes from acknowledging these realities, the realities
Yeah.
of death, things we don't like to acknowledge, right? The realities that we're
Yeah.
going to age, we're going to get sick, right? And pain and all of these things, bodily pain,
Yeah.
those are unavoidable. It's so interesting though, because he separates the bodily pain from the psychological pain,
Yes,
and he
and
says,
that's true.
yeah,
And um, the story that you read, it's thousands and thousands of years ago. So it's interesting to know that even that time and era, people knew all these things, and they knew the right way to live. And Buddha just got uh, that enlightenment into picture, and a lot of people started following that. And the ones who actually came to the point of enlightenment, and they actually understood what it is, they have actually lived the life that is calm and not stressful. So I feel every human goes through that stressful situation in life. Let it be work, let it be family, let it be health, let it be overthinking. And it's so important and interesting to know that, hey, our history has taught us so much, and why not take lessons from it?
yeah. I think the Buddha revolutionized the the culture. I think that it was radically different at that time
Yeah,
than it is now with Hinduism.
yeah,
Hinduism ended up being the dominant thing in India.
yeah,
There's various reasons for that. The decline of Buddhism, I'll do an episode on that one day.
yeah,
The decline in India um, has to do with several factors, I think.
yeah.
But we'll get
I
into
feel
that.
in Hinduism in India as well, at present generation, it's not really followed the way it should be. And I feel this podcast, the people who are really interested in the history would definitely connect to their roots, and would like to feel that what Buddhism is, and
Hmm.
what the history and the culture was. So that connection
Yeah, because
through this podcast was so important.
my perspective is that
Yeah.
Hinduism today has incorporated Buddhism fully. It has
Mm-hmm.
entirely embraced Buddhist teaching. And in fact, I think it's placed Buddhist teaching at its core because if you look at what they had in India at the time, they had the Brahmins, which are very different from Buddhism,
Mm.
right? The Brahmins,
Yeah.
they had their sacred intonations and they had their their Vedas and things, right? And it was, they had polytheism and converging on monotheism, and but it was very much, we're the highest caste, and we're like we're the ones who have the direct connection with Brahma. We're born from the mouth of Brahma, and we can help to make
Yeah.
sure
The
that the crops grow, and that,
superiority that they have.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that disasters don't befall
Mm.
the rulers, who are the
Yeah.
kshatriyas, the
Mm.
warriors. They're the ones who ruled. However, the Brahmins considered themselves to be above, and the Kshatriyas accepted that, and they relied on the Brahmins for their rituals, their ceremonies, and then you had this whole other religious stream, which my little write up here, which I it's hard for me to read it, and convey the depth and
Yeah.
the interest of it all, because it's so fascinating. But I can't commit it to memory either, so I had to read it. But it's good because it provokes this memory of how to further explain this stuff. So you have this other stream of religion, which was these ascetics, right? And I do mention that it's a reactionary movement against the excesses of the Brahmins. They're saying, no, there's more to spirituality than this. You guys aren't the be all end all of spirituality. We're going to go off into the forests, into the wilderness, and we're going to do our meditation, and we're going to do our different practices, self mortification. We're going to do all these different things, and they did many different things, and they had many different philosophies.
Yeah.
And they were seeking the higher truth. They were seeking the deathless. They were seeking release and moksha and liberation, and they were seeking all this, and they were seeking it in so many different ways. What's really fascinating is to note that Western civilization, they say all philosophy is a footnote to Plato, right? And then when they talk about philosophy, it's the Greeks mostly, and then it's some 18th 19th century philosophers, and it's some maybe some Voltaire, some this and that, like from here and there, right?
Yeah.
Italy and this and that, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Dante's Inferno. Well, then Christianity came in, and that became a big factor,
Yeah.
right? And then it was theology from then on.
Yeah.
But it's just fascinating. So, but the fact is that there was a fully developed world of philosophy in India, right?
Yeah.
And every possible philosophy. That it's so funny because the Pali Canon, which is the pardon me, the scriptures of Buddhism, it is very, very far-reaching, right? It takes up, I think, 7 feet of shelf space or something like that. 22,000 pages, something like that. Anyway, the very first sutta, so there's 3 different divisions of it. One of them is the Vinaya, which is the monastic code of discipline, basically the rules for the monks, takes up about maybe that much shelf space. And then the suttas, which are like this maybe, and that's all the stories from the life of the Buddha. So I have compacted them. I've condensed them into this little write-up, but there's so much more than that. There's so many more fascinating little tales. Like I was telling you about this, the youngest monk to ever attain nirvana was a 7-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Right. And he was such a little prodigy that he attained full enlightenment, nirvana. He attained arahantship while having his head shaved.
Yeah.
Seeing a lock of his hair that had just been shaved off his head. He attains arahantship, right? So he'd probably heard some teachings, heard the Buddha, and he was the youngest monk to ever attain enlightenment. He attained it while he was having his head shaved.
Yeah.
But there's just like a million fun little anecdotes like that, and then the nuns too. There's these really interesting, the inspired verses, like little poetic verses written by the nuns, or written by the monks, the Therigatha or the Therigatha. And so you get these first-hand accounts of nuns and their path to enlightenment, and they express what that means to them. And there's so much to it. It's endlessly fascinating. And so I was trying to share a little bit of that with this little thing that I did here. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that you got some value from that, because to me, that Indian history is just the most fascinating imaginable. Yeah. What I was saying though is that the very first sutta, I believe it's translated as the all-embracing net of views, and the idea is that it contains every possible philosophy, every possible worldview that a being can have, like ways of looking at reality, the self, existence, what it is to be a conscious being, right? And what it means, and whether there's life after death or not. And there's just like, basically this sutta lists every possible one.
Yeah.
And it says that all of them are wrong view. Now this is a typical religion, right? Everything's wrong view except for this one
Mm.
true view, right? But that doesn't mean that like other religions or things like that might
Mm.
that they don't have tons of truth in them, or come really close to
Yeah.
the highest knowledge, the highest understanding.
I feel
Certainly,
I have been close. I have had close friends of all um, kind of religions, and I feel every religion. I've read books as well, so I feel every religion teaches um, somewhat similar uh, s- things, where yeah, be good to people, uh, be
good and
kind,
evil.
yeah, good and evil, and generosity,
Hmm.
um, forgiveness,
Hmm.
um, donations.
Hmm.
I when you were reading the one statement where you mentioned that uh, in the past they used to do a lot of donations, food donations.
Hmm.
I had learned that from Sikh culture, where they have gurudwaras, and they have immense food donations, and they do it with all pure heart. And it's such, I've been with my uncle to the donation center and everything, and it's amazing to see like how selflessly people do that. And it's just pure charity with heartedness. So that's amazing.
I was going to say that
Yeah.
the Indian religions, the Dharmic, I call them the Dharmic Indian
Yeah.
religions, right? So not Islam. Islam comes from the Abrahamic
Mm.
tradition. It's a different class, but the Indian
Yeah.
religions with, roots back,
Mm.
um, particularly like anything that's spurred off of
Mm.
Hinduism, or yeah, it's they all I would say
Mm.
have every element of the Buddhist teaching incorporated into them.
Yeah.
And so, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Hinduism, Jainism, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Um, you,
Sikhism.
you, yeah, you
Yeah.
had someone close to you who was a Jain,
Yes, I do have
and
them
and
in my head.
Sikhism.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel somewhere even if I look into Islam, no, not really that closely, but yeah, I feel uh, somewhere when it comes to practicing forgiveness, practicing generosity, practicing uh, donations is still a part of their culture as well. So I feel reading so many books and reading so many or being close to a lot of people in life with different cultures and coming from India as well. I feel, yeah, I've been surrounded and I've been blessed getting surrounded by a different a mentality of people, just different personalities of people. And yeah, it's amazing to uh, look from a perspective where, okay, all religions have something unique that they teach. And at the end of the day, it's it's humanity comes first. I feel like any religion you go or any religious book you open, it's always said humanity comes first, no matter in what language it's described.
I'm going to push back a little bit.
Okay.
Religions are different. Some of them are
Okay.
more tolerant, some of them are less tolerant, some of them have an aggressive ethos, some of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
There is a hierarchy of value, and,
Mm.
and a hierarchy of truth, and I think that there is a lot of truth in a lot of different religions,
Mm.
and then I think we have to be honest, and we have to examine and side by
Yeah.
side compare
I
to
feel
really
maybe it's my personal experience that I've always encountered like good people
Hmm.
in that way, where I've experienced these kind of situations
Yeah.
where I've seen it in a different
Well,
perspective, or maybe I look at things in different perspective. Mhm.
I think one thing that you'll find
Yeah.
is that it's a universal for all humans. It
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're atheist or not, right? If
Yeah.
you have no religion, um, you're gonna have the reality
Mm.
of you can be a good person or
Yeah.
you can be a bad person.
Yeah.
That's a reality. So you're going to find that, and you're going to find teachings about
Yeah.
that in any
Yeah.
different system of thought.
And
As
that's where karma comes from, where Buddhism is more focused on either there is a good deed that you do or there is an evil deed that you do, and no matter what, you get the karma, or you get the fruit accordingly. Like whatever you sow, that's going to ripen.
and tell me, growing up in a Hindu culture
Yeah.
with parents who are Hindu,
Yeah.
um, you have that exact teaching. Is that
Yes.
correct? So
100%.
not only that, but you also have this is what I mean. Like the Sikhism, the Hinduism, the Jainism, you all come from that same stream, that same
Yes.
current of dharmic traditions, which
Yeah.
have a concept of liberation.
Yeah.
You have a concept of the end of the cycle of rebirth.
Yes.
Hinduism
Yeah.
has that, Sikhism has that,
Yeah.
Jainism has that. So that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Though all of those, I think you guys, you have the full picture.
Yes.
And I personally, I think that's because those traditions were impacted by the figure Siddhartha Gotama,
Yeah.
right? Not only that, but like the truth is, there was a lot of wisdom in that time,
Yeah.
and the Buddha just happened to arise in that time, and he happened to have, the way I see it is that he happened to have the personal character to
Yeah.
have the ability to be the one who
Mm.
fully broke through to the other side, who fully reached nirvana
Yeah.
first. And that's why
Yeah.
we refer to him and only him as the Buddha.
Yeah.
However, Buddha simply means awake, right?
Yeah.
But the Buddha is the epithet, the title that we give him. And no one else, we don't call other people Buddhas. We call them arhants.
Mm.
However, there are other Buddhas.
Mm.
They're just not in this time, in this period. This period belongs to this Buddha,
Yeah.
because this Buddha was the one who self-awakened and then had the ability to convey that and teach others
Yeah.
and help others reach the exact same enlightenment as him.
Yeah.
No one who attains enlightenment is less enlightened than the Buddha.
Yeah.
They attain the same thing,
Mm.
but he gets the special homage that we pay to him
Yeah.
because he was the one who self-awakened and then
Yeah.
taught others. If it wasn't for someone doing that,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have the teaching.
Yeah.
We wouldn't
That's
have
true.
access.
I feel, yeah, I totally agree with that, because yeah, as coming from a Hindu family as well, I've been raised in a way where simple living and having a very simplistic lifestyle, making sure you're not harming anyone, making sure you're kind to everyone. Uh, my parents especially, they've always taught me this, that hey, keep working hard, and if you have the ability to help someone, do it. Um, Even if someone doesn't help you back or someone can't do that for you, it just adds to your good karma. So maybe growing up in that atmosphere and having those teachings in life from my mom and my dad, I feel, yeah, that's just inbuilt in me, that yeah, okay, it's okay if someone doesn't respect that or someone doesn't value that. I know that that's going to add in my good karma. So it just naturally processes in my brain in that way now when I'm grown up. So yeah, that's true. That coming from a Hindu family or coming from a family which has the roots to Buddhism, it's indulged in us when we are growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And thank you so much. That it was amazing to hear um, the story from you. And it was honestly, when I first met you, I didn't really believe that you would have so immense knowledge, and you're so interested in Hinduism, and you're so interested in Indian culture, not specifically Hinduism, but Indian culture. And yeah, and I'm so fascinated to see that, yeah, you genuinely have worked your way through knowing the culture so well and really getting interested in it so much,
Mm-hmm.
despite being so sick. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much that you shared this story. I'm sure a lot of people who genuinely feel connected are definitely going to hear the entire podcast on repeat for sure.
Yeah. So one of the podcasts that I think the next one
Mhm.
we're going to record it on ethics. We're going to record it on Buddhist ethics, which
Yeah,
are of course also Hindu ethics and basically Indian ethics.
yeah,
Um, the Dharmic the Dharmic traditions all have the same
yeah,
ethical beliefs,
yeah.
and then I'm going to compare those to the
Mm.
Christian ethical system framework that they use, and I'm going to compare. I'm going to say, like, what are Christian ethical beliefs?
Mm.
What are Buddhist ethical beliefs?
Yeah.
And how are they similar and how are they different?
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
that's what
Yeah,
I'm going to talk about next time.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, Prasanna, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Kellan. It was nice talking to you.
You too. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. We're going to be back really soon with another great episode next week. And so we hope you tune in for that. We're really appreciative of you guys, and please do comment if you have any questions or any comments about what we talked about today. We always appreciate that, and we will respond to you guys because we want you to be involved, and we want you to help guide the direction of this podcast. How can we best serve you? Because this is for you guys. We're in this to communicate, and you're involved in that process. So please do reach out and be a part of this.
Please like, share, and subscribe to a Kellan Howard podcast and stay connected with us. It's lovely to get a lot of comments and a lot of messages from you guys. It's amazing to talk to people and actually know what they are thinking. And it's good to hear that people do connect with the topics that we talk on. So it's amazing. If you would definitely subscribe to the channel as well and share as much as you can. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.